Someone died today. Not a news story, not a statistic. Someone who woke up this morning, had thoughts, had a name, had people who knew them. And by evening, they were gone. You already know what happens next. A funeral, a burial, a ceremony, a way of saying this person mattered, and we're not just going to leave them on the ground. That instinct feels deeply human, natural, obvious. But here's the thing. It wasn't always. There was a time, not that long ago in the scale of human history, when we had no idea what to do with a dead body. No rituals, no graves, no flowers, nothing. And what we eventually came up with was far stranger, far darker, and far more revealing about who we really are than anyone wants to admit. For the first 100,000 years of human existence, we have almost no evidence of intentional burial. Think about that. Our species has been around for roughly 300,000 years, and for the first third of that, nothing. No graves, no grave goods, no markings. When someone died, what happened to their body is a complete mystery. The most likely answer is nothing happened. They were left where they fell. Animals came, and by morning, there was nothing left to bury. That's not callousness. That was just reality. You were a small group of hunter-gatherers, moving constantly to survive. You couldn't carry the dead. You couldn't stop to dig. Grief was a luxury you couldn't afford. Then something changed. About 120,000 years ago, in a cave in what is now Iraq, a body was placed in the ground deliberately, carefully. The bones were arranged. The body was positioned on its side, legs slightly curled, like someone sleeping. This was Shanidar Cave, and the individual buried there was not even fully human, at least not by our modern definition. It was a Neanderthal. For decades, scientists refused to believe it. Neanderthals were supposed to be primitive, brutish, incapable of symbolic thought. The idea that they buried their dead, that they felt something when someone died, didn't fit the story we wanted to tell about them. But the evidence kept piling up. 17 Neanderthal burial sites found in the Levant region alone. Bodies positioned deliberately, stones placed under heads like pillows. In some sites, the faint chemical signature of flowers scattered across the grave. And when Homo sapiens arrived in the same region around the same time, they started doing it too. Two completely different species, both suddenly, almost simultaneously, beginning to bury their dead. Nobody fully understands why. Here's where it gets stark. Burial, the thing we consider the decent, respectful option, was actually just one of several methods our ancestors used, and compared to the others, putting a body in the ground was almost conservative. In northwestern Europe, between 15,000 and 19,000 years ago, a group of prehistoric hunter-gatherers called the Magdalenians had their own method of handling the dead. They ate them. Not out of starvation, not because food was scarce. Researchers who analyzed human bones from Goff's Cave in England found something unmistakable. Cut marks, bite marks, deliberate defleshing. The Magdalenians were consuming their dead as a funerary rite, a ritual, a way of honoring someone. And before you dismiss that as savage, consider what it means. These people believed that eating someone you loved was a way of keeping them with you, absorbing their strength, their soul, carrying them forward inside you. Different from a burial, not necessarily less meaningful. Then there was excarnation, sky burial, the practice of placing a body on an elevated platform or open ground and letting birds, vultures, eagles, ravens, strip the flesh from the bones. This was practiced in Tibet, in parts of South Asia, among the Zoroastrians of ancient Persia, and among indigenous peoples across North America. The earliest archaeological evidence for excarnation dates back 160,000 years to the Awash River Valley in Ethiopia. The logic behind it was profound. The body returns to the earth. Through the birds, it rises to the sky. It becomes part of the world again, instead of being locked in the ground. Some cultures went even further. They dug up their dead. Iron Age Britons, over 2,000 years ago, had a practice of partially burying a body, then returning years later to retrieve the bones. Not all the bones, specific ones. Skulls were especially prized, kept in homes, placed near fires, consulted in a sense. The dead weren't gone. They were guests. They sat at the edge of your daily life, watching. In some prehistoric grave sites, only skulls are found. No other bones, no full skeletons, just heads, carefully arranged, in a place that appears to have been used repeatedly over generations. Researchers believe some ancient people thought the spirit lived in the head, that consuming someone's brain or keeping their skull nearby meant keeping a piece of them alive. We call it bizarre. They called it love. But here's what all of this is actually telling us. Every single one of these practices, the burial, the cannibalism, the sky burial, the skull keeping, required something that no other animal on Earth has ever demonstrated. The belief that death is not the end. You don't eat your dead as a ritual unless you believe there's something in them worth consuming beyond calories. You don't arrange flowers on a grave 120,000 years ago unless you believe the person in that grave can somehow receive them. You don't keep a skull in your home unless you believe the skull still holds something of the person who used it. Every ancient death ritual, no matter how different on the surface, points to the same impossible idea. Something continues. And this is where it gets strange, because the oldest burial sites we have predate written language by over 100,000 years. They predate agriculture by 110,000 years. They predate every civilization, every religion, every philosophy we know of. Before humans figured out how to grow food, before we built the first city, before we invented wheels or mathematics, we already decided that death required a response. That was our first idea as a species. Not tools, not fire, not language. What do we do when someone is gone? In 2025, archaeologists excavating Shanidar Cave in Israel uncovered something remarkable. 5 sets of human remains, both Homo sapiens and Neanderthal-like hominins, buried side by side in the exact same ritual fashion. Bodies curled in a fetal position. Red ochre, a pigment used for ceremony, scattered across the bones. 2 completely different species, bearing each other together. That discovery reshapes everything we thought we knew about ancient humans. It suggests that burial wasn't just a human invention. It was a shared discovery. Something 2 different minds, living in the same valley, watching each other, both arrived at independently. Both looked at a dead body and felt the same thing. We don't have a word for what that feeling was. It's older than any language we've ever spoken. But we recognize it, because it's the same thing you feel. That tightness when someone close to you is suddenly gone. The strange instinct to do something, anything, to mark the moment. To say, this wasn't nothing. This person was here. This person mattered. We like to think of ourselves as the civilized ones, the advanced ones, the species that figured everything out. But the truth is, the most human thing we've ever done, the thing that separates us from every other creature on this planet, didn't require civilization at all. It just required someone to die, and someone else to stay.